Okay, good morning. This is day 32 of making videos to explain a day and thoughts in the life of me as a human with schizophrenia. I make these videos to improve camera presence for as a life skill in whatever endeavor I do in the future and to convey this information. I start with an intro, and the intro is about the fact that I came to the realization while writing my book that I am an itty bitty writer that experiences schizophrenia if I was going to describe myself to other people, and that it is a reality to be experienced. Much of the experience can be chalked up to coming into contact with systems. It can be explained by coming into contact with systems and operations that are highly advanced technology using modern or advanced technology. I am just a one time semi activist. I am now a brain damaged author and writing a book about surveillance, political surveillance, technology in society, and psychological operations. Uh, my experience with these things in society has changed my brain so that it now functions in a schizophrenic manner. And I am actually just a recipient of organized political warfare, what NATO calls cognitive war, and what the former Indian chief of intelligence calls neurostrike, which is what China uses. This has given me a conditioned characteristic of schizophrenia, which is more accurately described as an experience with a classified or underworld section of reality. Okay, so today I was going to get into a few things. First of which is I talked a little bit about weather warfare and the idea that winds can be manipulated and that weather events can be modified or whatever. And I talked about in the 60s that the presidents of the United States in JFK and LBJ both gave major speeches before political bodies or governing bodies like the UN and the U.S. Congress about the fact that they needed to control the weather, and that was 65 years ago. And so I speculated that I'm guessing that proliferation of that technology has advanced now, where you have all kinds of various actors sending all kinds of satellites in the sky. And one of the things that it gets talked about is HARP, HAARP. It's a system up in Alaska, and I get some of my information out of this book. It's by a nun who is a scientist named Rosalie Bertell, and she wrote this book called Planet Earth New Weapon of War in 2000, so right before 9/11, and it was released then. And she discusses HARP in there. She discusses, all kinds of ways in which the basically the ways in which the government or the militaries of the world are using the planet Earth as a weapon. And she does discuss HARP, steering ionosphere and steering the atmosphere and changing atmospheric pressure and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting book. And when it came out in 2000, the leaders of um, the Sierra Club in Canada and stuff actually gave it a review. And now it's kind of gone black where nobody really talks about it. So it's kind of interesting. I think people are afraid if they talk about it, they'll be called schizophrenic because you're dealing with the quote schizophrenic reality. Are you paranoid? You know? Okay, so in my other book I was reading, it's the book that is called Never Enough, and it is all about achievement culture and how we have a high achievement culture in our country, and what we do is never enough for ourselves or anybody else. And in the book, it discusses the fact that people are siloed and kind of set aside and kind of as individuals, and it was discussing a section in there where the mothers were talking about feeling independent and having to feel independent and not depending on anybody else. It was saying that we have lost kind of civic participation and cultural participation in organizations, like community participation. Like churches used to be the main thing that people went to, bowling leagues, other civic participation and stuff. And people just don't do that kind of thing anymore, so you don't form community. And I was talking with my dad, and we were discussing my mom and my dad. My mom had a little bit of a different experience where she didn't really know her neighbors growing up, you know, and she had a little bit of a different childhood than my dad. But my dad's childhood, we were saying, is he was like a little more structured because, he had a boys and girls club across the street from his house, and so he got to know the neighbors because they all would frequent this community center, and by frequenting the community center, they got to know each other and knew of each other. And he said he basically knew all his neighbors, and they both lived in Hollywood, but they had different experiences. And my dad lived in like kind of the same house growing up, and my mom moved around to different houses, and so there was a little bit different community aspect to that growing up. But my mom, she actually she actually spent a lot of time with nuns uh, when she was a kid. She was kind of on her own, and the nuns kind of took her in a little bit. Anyways, so Katie Ledecky, in my Katie Ledecky book, discusses her grandma Berta, and she's in a chapter and she's discussing her grandma Berta, and I'm in the beginning of the chapter. And I guess her grandma Berta was um, Jewish, and she answered a cryptic uh, advertisement in a newspaper in the 1940s. She had been a writer, and she was a very prolific writer, and she went to Columbia University, which was very great thing to do for her. And she answered an advertisement, and it turned out the advertisement was made by Albert Einstein, in the 1940s, and she worked for Albert Einstein. And so I thought that was kind of cool. Like, that's kind of like a small world, but like, the Jewish grandmother worked for Albert Einstein, and then her granddaughter ends up becoming world record holder in swimming events, numerous swimming events. So I thought that was kind of cool. That was a little interesting story. And okay, I was going to get into from Jewish grandmother to uh, Elon Musk's Nazi salute and Trump coming into power. And so you have this situation where you have all these weird terrorist attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas, and potentially you have 9 people being arrested for arson since the fires that took place in Los Angeles. So it makes you wonder, is there like an army of people setting fucking fires in our city or in Los Angeles or something? And like what's their political motives for doing this? And I saw a second guy now arrested wearing a black shirt while doing it. And this one was in Griffith Park. I'm almost positive I saw him wearing a black shirt. So, the guy that was arrested in West Hills was also wearing a black shirt, and I've told you that I get followed around by people wearing black shirts. In fact, the other day I was followed around by everybody, and they were all of this. I don't like to make racial undertones to things, but all the people were of the same race, and they were all wearing all black everywhere I went in the stores. And so, I mean, I don't know what that means. I don't know if people are trying to frame those people. I don't know what's going on, but like some sort of weird thing going on with like black shirts. And then you go back to ancient times, or well, I guess it's ancient now, 100 years ago. Uh, the Nazis came to power, or I think Mussolini's wore black shirts or brown shirts, or I think black shirts was was a uniform of not fascists around the world, and now you have a guy, the richest man in the world, giving a Nazi salute at the inauguration for presidency of the United States, and then he gaslights people and says, "Oh, it's not a Nazi salute. I was just giving this weird Nazi salute. Everyone's calling me a Nazi, and then I give a Nazi salute. So and that gets into this idea that I talk about is like the laughter. Like when people are delivering the news about Trump, they're like, "Ha ha, he wants to change the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Oh, that's going to cost millions of dollars." And it's all this like laughter, like what a goofball this Trump is, and he wants to go to war with Mexico. Did you hear that? Oh, and it's like this weird laughter undertone of like treating him like a clown as he ushers in some sort of weird fascist motif or a fascist aspect of the government. And I don't. I just feel like Trump masks discussion about how we have like a dual dictatorship in this country, and he likes to he uses comedy actually to mask, get us all to laugh at fascism. Like it wouldn't be fun. Like it's like a mock government, but it's like why are we laughing at fascism? And then same time you're saying that you have like potentially an army of people setting fire to Los Angeles. And you're like, why do people want to burn Los Angeles? And so it's really crazy times we're living in 2030s. You have weather manipulation, you have synthetic biology, you have potential bio warfare in COVID. You have brain control in China and probably the United States, I believe, yeah. And then you have fires and weather manipulation, artificial weathers and stuff. You have deportation forces, mass deportation forces. So there's all these forces from all over the spectrum on the political aspect of things, and it makes for a crazy pot of soup that we're all going to be living in. They called the melting pot before, but now we're in a fucking literal melting pot, and it's really crazy what's going on. And I don't know. I started thinking like, can we get to greener pastures? Can we get out of here? But maybe I don't need to go. Maybe it's not okay. It'll be okay. But it just feels like we're in a pot of soup being boiled, and we're just like kind of sitting there, being like picking our nose or something. And I don't know. That's what it feels like is going on. All right. So I think I'm going to end this one a little short today, 13 minutes. I don't have much else to say, but I just wanted to say those things. And yeah, Trump's president now, and everyone's laughing, and it's so funny. And Nazi salutes on the podium for the presidency. So what else are you gonna say to that? I just laughed at myself. So I don't know what that means. I'm brainwashed or something. Okay, goodbye.